And now, a reading of Far Country by Peter L. Rice. Roaring gusts of wind swept across the open landing area of Salford Station, carrying dense clouds of talcum fine grit that attacked the troops, dropships, and vehicles gathered at the spaceport.
Wait, when it says Salford Station, does it mean Salford in England?
I have no idea.
Okay.
The grit drove under the wristbands and neck rings of the troopers' uniforms, mixing with perspiration to form a slurry that scoured away layers of flesh. The only way to avoid the blasting grit was to turn away. The only way to avoid the constant abrasion was to remain motionless. Because it was beneath the dignity of the battalion commander of the Draconis Combine Mustard Soldiers to turn away.
Hang on, they're called the Mustard Soldiers?
Mustard is in drafted.
As in the what?
Mustard is in brought into active service.
Oh, right, mustard.
Yeah.
Not mustard.
No.
I thought...
No, it's understandable.
Welcome to the Condiment Wars.
Yeah. But it gets better, so, you know. To turn away from the clouds of grit, Chusa Tokashio Hamata chose the second alternative. It was not so for the other members of the battalion staff, however. Seeing them crouched beside a landing pad, their hoods pulled tight against the blasts, Hamata was sure that they were also watching him the slightest sign of weakness. A samurai...
Oh, for fuck's sake!
...from an armed enemy, much less an attack by mere dust. Neither did a battalion commander. Neither did a graduate of the Sunjang MechWarrior Academy. And Tokashio Hamata was all three of these. Facing into the approaching cone of dust, his only acknowledgement was the slightest squinting of his eyes. The cloud passed over the landing pad, where the dropships awaited boarding by the members of the 2,452nd Battalion, 5th Galadon Regulars. Along with its sister...
Now, look, if you can look at the screen for a second.
Yes.
Fuck.
It is unfortunate. Equally unfortunate, its sister battalion, the 2,452nd, was loading for transshipment to Brailsford, a world only one jump away. Because of the so-called McAllister Rebellion, the Combine's military commanders had been taken the precaution of pulling troops away from the distant edge of Combine space. Hamata had known about the change for 6 months, ever since he'd first gotten wind of the orders in June of that year. Supporting the two combat battalions were a heavy engineer battalion, the 262nd, and a combat medical support battalion. Tokashio Hamata was not happy with the situation. His battalion's dropships, all of them Vulture class, were not being combat loaded. The ships assigned to his unit were too big to take only a single company, and too small to carry two. As a result, he'd had to break some of the companies up among the dropships. They would all be under his command once they linked with the Raiden, the Leviathan-class jumpship that would transport them across the stars, but they would be separated and scrambled during the transits to and from the jumpship awaiting them in space. Deployment onto Brailsford would be equally confused. Hamata dreaded the thought of administrative movement. It always made the troops slip a bit. Even though he'd been assured that Brailsford was a secure planet, there was always the nagging doubt. Having raised and trained the 2,452nd himself, Hamata wanted to be able to hit his landing zone combat ready. These troops were his children. He didn't want to see anything happen. Another gust of wind scoured the landing area, and Hamata squinted against it. The loading ramp trembled under his feet as a Chiha armored personnel carrier ground its way slowly up the incline. The ramps, Hamata noted, were of the older style and not quite wide enough to take the new family of equipment. The driver was keeping the 22-ton vehicle carefully centered on the yellow line printed down the middle of the ramp. When Hamata noticed that the driver was a woman, his jaw tightened involuntarily.
Oh, come on!
He understood that females of the Uponis Combine were not barred from any profession. This seems to be a double whammy of terrible, doesn't it? He understood that the Combine needed every human resource at its disposal, but that didn't alter the fact that he preferred to have only men in his unit. By careful manipulation of the personnel records, he had managed to keep his fighting units almost pure. It was true that the support and administrative units included more women, but that couldn't be helped. There were even women in the headquarters as officers. As a samurai of ancient lineage, however, Hamata never felt comfortable seeing a woman carrying the daisho. It was an attitude that extended back in time more than 1,000 years, so deeply ingrained in his psyche that he would probably never be able to overcome it. But enough
Are you
of that.
1,000 years old, motherfucker?
He told himself. It was the loading operation that demanded all his attention at the moment. As he dismissed the thoughts from his mind, another Chiha APC rumbled past. Down the line of vultures, Hamata could see the last of his vehicles grinding through the gaping cargo doors in the ship's fuselages. These were not the biggest dropships available, yet even they dwarfed the battalion's armored vehicles. Hamata grimaced again. He was being forced, by orders, to leave most of his combat equipment behind. Those orders had informed him that he would receive pre-placed equipment once they reached Brailsford. He was authorized to carry only 10% of his vehicles with him. The others he must leave on Salford, the replacement battalion, a group of green conscripts who would take his place in the garrison. Hamata had commandeered the newest vehicles, regardless of their practical value. He wasn't going to leave his best equipment to draft thieves. There were rumors and reports from within the Combine military about the new breed of weapon coming off the assembly lines. He'd seen pictures of these walking monsters, and he doubted whether any mechanized infantry battalion could ever hope to oppose them. Just one of the giants carried more long and short-range firepower than his entire unit could deploy. Those monster machines would surely change the face of the war, and Hamata wondered if he were young enough yet to make the change. As the cargo doors swung shut all along the line, the loadmasters stepped onto the ramps and flashed the clear signal for the control tower. Green lights winked on above the personal access ports, down below the last of the troops. Hamata turned toward the clump of staff officers, smiling inwardly to see the clump suddenly shatter like a group of chickens startled by a predator.
You know, I'm starting to have my doubts about the quality of Rambo as a robot.
That's okay, I've never had my doubts about the quality of this book.
Yeah. I wasn't sure at first when you suggested it, and
Then it happened.
yeah! We were going to read Time Cube.
already hear people screaming in terror. And speaking of screaming in terror, let's continue. Shatter like a group of chickens startled by a predator. Though he knew they'd been huddled behind the ramp for the past hour trying to be as inconspicuous as possible, his officers immediately began to behave...
Jimmy, sorry to interrupt again. I just noticed this, sound options.
Yes?
There's a lot of them! And I don't know what any of them mean.
They're basically all, sound card drivers.
Should I just leave it? I don't know what
Leave
it was
it
at.
as it is. Trust me on this, leave it as it is.
Well, sound's still working, so... I'm gonna go fuck around with Rambo for a while.
Fair enough. His officers immediately began to behave as though they had many important things to do. It was, of course, a charade. The battalion's officers were, for the moment, irrelevant. The civilian crews of the dropships were in charge of loading and storage, and the troops and equipment would be stowed where they wanted, regardless of anything the battalion staff said. It gave both Commander and his staff a feeling of helplessness, but no one could do anything about it. When the Draconis Combine said that this was how it was to be, then so it was. There was no appeal. Hamata herded the staff together and prodded them onto the dropship Hideyoshi Toyotomi. The Toyotomi held the bulk of headquarters and headquarters company for the 2,452nd Battalion. As he too stepped through the personnel door, Hamata was amazed by the size of the ship's interior. The Vulture-class ships were nothing more than huge cabins with tie-down points for the heavy equipment. Between the tie-downs were tiers of pipe rack bunks standing vertically against the outer hull. This ship had obviously been designed to move the maximum amount of people and equipment from one point to another. The quarters were Spartan, but the adjutant made sure that the staff got the best of what was available. Hamata had the good fortune to get a single room. All the others had to share with at least one other member of the battalion. At the moment, the loudspeakers in the immense bay were spewing forth a series of commands and information, but the words were lost in the continual echo. Whoever had designed the communication system must not have paid any attention to the acoustics of the place. Hamata wasn't worried about it, though. He'd heard it all before, and knew the announcement was an alert to take off. He signaled those around him to find seats and buckle in. Takeoff would be abrupt, and anything or person not secured would end up plastered against the after bulkhead or skewed on some sharp object. The staff scampered to their station. Hamata moved to his stateroom, climbing up a broad shaft to the upper decks. He activated the sliding door to his compartment, walked across to the bunk, and lay down. He snapped the restraining straps across his chest and thighs, and waited for the blast of acceleration that would hurl the dropship off the planet's surface and toward the jump ship that waited 14 days away in deep space. The launch was just as Hamata expected. The Hideyoshi Toyotomi exploded off the ground under full power, the force of the liftoff pressing passengers down into their bunks and peeling legs back. It was a notable experience. Less than an hour later, the gravity had dropped to a constant 0.9 Gs, making it possible to move around the ship. Then had come a 20-minute transition period of zero gravity, while the dropship crew computed the final vectors for marrying up with the jump ship Ryder. Hamata kept the
Of
restraint.
course it's called fucking ride.
Yes, just like the Hideyoshi Toyotomi.
You know what? That's an actual historical figure.
Yes.
I'll give you that.
Hamata kept the restraining straps in place until the green gravitational light came on for the second time. Having previously experienced the sensation of weightlessness, he felt no great desire to do so again. But some members of the staff, especially the younger ones, eagerly released themselves and floated through the cargo bay, creating the normal number of accidents as some inexperienced floater came into sudden contact with an immovable pipe frame. The only person Hamata needed to consult was the battalion priest to learn the outcome of the omens for the trip. When those came back as uneventful, there was nothing more to do. The drop... Yep, go on.
They're literally using soothsayers.
Yes. The dropship began to accelerate, establishing artificial gravity. Hamata waited until the green gravitational light showed that 0.7 Gs had been achieved within the cargo bay, then hit the quick release on his harness. He gently pried himself from the bed, letting his body and his mind adjust to the reduced gravitational force and the change in orientation. As the omens had predicted, the trip was uneventful. The first 7 days went peacefully by. Now that they were halfway to the jump ship, there was another transitional period as the Toyotomi rotated to approach the starship's stern first. The second half of the transit would be spent in deceleration, allowing the same 0.7 Gs of negative thrust to slow the Toyotomi as it neared the Raiden. By the time the Toyotomi and the rest of the dropship fleet reached the orbiting jump ship, their velocity would have been reduced to no more than 3 kilometers per hour. The closing speed would be less than that of a walking man, making the ships easy pickings for the grappling arms sprung like grotesque appendages.
Wait, hang on. 3 kilometers per hour?
Yes.
In space?
Yes.
What's that old trope that they always refer to? Sci-fi writers have no sense of scale.
That will prove a very apt one, actually, as we go on.
Because, goddamn, you're in space. Are they in orbit?
Actually, it's a docking maneuver.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, are they docking in orbit?
No.
Okay, well, that's something at least. I mean, the idea of a 3 kilometer per hour orbit around anything at all.
No, it's a 3 kilometer per hour approach.
Space. Moving on.
Making the ships easy pickings for the grappling arms sprung like grotesque appendages from the bow and stern of the jump ship. Another 7 days passed without incident, bringing the dropships to the Leviathan-class jump ship. Like piglets maneuvering for a teat, they nuzzled toward their mothership for security and sustenance.
That's the metaphor you're going with.
Yes, apparently so.
Killalot, fuck off!
One by one, the dropships came alongside and attached themselves to the spine of the Raiden. Hamata, still strapped in his chair, noted the gentle thump as the jump ship's docking ports captured his and the other ship. The dropship pilots were experienced was obvious. Hamata had been through much more violent dockings in his day. Hamata would have very little time between the dropship's docking and the jump to Brailsford, just enough for a quick inspection of the carriers as they locked on and possibly also for a brief meeting with the jump ship commander. He had never met Wilson Hartwell, master and commander of the Raiden, but, like any other commanding officer in the Draconis Combine, the man was sure to be highly professional. 6 billion years.
I'm surprised they're not called the Ryu Combine.
Oh, don't worry, there will be other names, trust me on this.
No, it's just with all the gratuitous Japanese going on.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they're using the Latin derivative instead of just calling it Ryu.
6 billion years, more or less, before Chusa Tokoshio Hamata loaded his battalion onto the dropships and began his voyage to Brailsford, the universe had been born in a cataclysmic explosion.
Wait, hang on, this is only 6 billion years after the Big Bang?
Apparently.
What the fuck?
Since that time, it had continued to expand at enormous speed. Man, a resident of the universe for only a very short period, had studied and hypothesized about how all this had happened and what it all meant. Men had made laws and rules that attempted to explain the event.
Is 6 billion years even enough time for proper galaxy formation?
I think it's a case of the author may be working on outdated numbers.
I think it's a case of the author not paying attention to fucking anything. Except wanking over Hanzo Steel.
And then had become convinced and complacent about what they had written.
He'd probably hump a katana if it wouldn't castrate him.
Well, it's funny, because just listen.
Oh, God.
Everyone then assumed that because the theories had been stated and written, they must be true.
Oh, no.
Space was thought to be rational and reasonable. Of course, some cherished theories about speed were demolished when the speed of light was first detected in the last half of the 20th century. But once destroyed and recast, the theories became laws again. There was no one, certainly no one in the scientific community of the Draconis Combine, who would question them. One of the laws dealt with the theory of jump points. Once the zenith and nadir jump points had been met and declared safe, the entire scientific community agreed with the theory and went on to other methods. A slightly myopic, but entirely human attitude.
I mean, okay, yeah, you have to make some conceits for FTL. Fair enough.
But the immense forces that ripped apart the original particle of cosmic matter were unaware of the requirements and laws established by humans. Time, space, and mass changed and grew. All three parameters were in flux and at great speeds. Compared to human existence, however, those changes were incredibly slow. The 100,000 years since Homo sapiens first emerged from the mists was a mere instant compared to the 6 billion years of the universe. The universe was, in fact, a fractured element, and the rifts and joints between the moving plates drifted across what humans called empty space. One of those cosmic rifts was now drifting through the Salford jump point. Anything encountering the rift would be hurled across great distances, as though it were in a sixth dimension. If the object...
A sixth dimension?
A sixth dimension.
Okay.
If the object were very...
I'm wondering where 5's gone.
Probably getting a coffee somewhere. If the object were very lucky, it would survive to find itself lost in an unknown place.
Oh, I wonder what's going to happen.
Or, perhaps if it were unlucky enough to survive, it would find itself in that unknown place. For once there would be no way for the Voyagers to return. On the bridge of the Raiden...
Just imagine me piping in the Star Trek Voyager theme here.
Pretty much.
Voyager's better written than this.
It is.
And that's saying something.
Master and Commander Wilson Hartwell watched the console as the jump ship approached its exit point. Once transition occurred, there would be no navigation. All the plotting had been done while the ship hung near the jump point in the Salford system. It was like opening a door and stepping through. You passed from one room to the other. Even though the rooms might be 30 light years apart, it was just that simple. The computer did all the navigating and piloting long before the jump took place. As long as the jump point was correctly plotted, there was nothing to do but wait. The numbers on the console scrolled down, rapidly approaching the time distance mark. Then the console registered 0. And the
Rambo, what are you doing? I have set the controller down. Stop it, Rambo!
And the Draconis Combine jump ship Raiden shuddered slightly as it dissolved into the no man's land known as hyperspace.
Is that their 5th dimension?
No idea. The jump through hyperspace was like opening a door to another room. Step through, and there you are. Even if the step takes you 30 light years away, it's as easy as that. The transition is only a few seconds long, but the human mind is almost incapable of understanding the process or appreciating the time. Hartwell had been through the door so many times that he responded differently to the sensation than did those who didn't do it for a living. He braced himself against the command chair and stared at the navigational CompuSystem console. The screen showed a digital, three-dimensional polar coordinate system of their location. Sol, the star around which Terra revolved, was considered the center of the universe. All the chart makers had to start somewhere.
No! No. No, and no.
They had used the plane described by the orbit of Terra as level, with Terran north being up and south being down.
There is no north!
After that, it was easy. A vector and a positive or negative number was all that was needed to determine a location in space.
I mean, are you... 3 dimensions... No!
With Navstar coordinates and mapping, it was possible to get an accurate reading within the nearest meter.
No, it's not!
Not that a jump ship needed such accuracy. Once a jump was authorized, the coordinates of the final destination were plugged into the computer. The last digits would determine the jumping ship's exact exit point.
I mean, yeah, I mean, okay, yes, you can, like, figure out, like, meters and things, but not with the way you've described things.
To make the jump, the ship began at a designated point in the gravity well of the system. A point where all forces from the planets and the central star were reduced to absolute 0. With the coordinates of the next point already plotted, the ship rotated until the navigational heading was correct. The transitional authorization code was called up from the computer's memory. The jump ship's Kearney Fuchida drive sent a burst of energy plasma from the titanium-germanium alloy in its liquid helium bath to the field.
Wait, hang on. Isn't germanium one of those, like, really, really dense, incredibly radioactive things at the end of the table?
I'd have to double check, but I seem to vaguely remember that, so.
Yeah, good luck.
The energy produced the hyperspace field that was further amplified by the KF drive itself, like opening a door and stepping through into another room. Hartwell watched the digital display of current, future location. The door opened. The ship stepped through.
We're all
Then-
sci-fi nerds here. You don't need to explain the concept of wormholes.
Then there was a sharp jolt as the threshold was crossed. There wasn't supposed to be a jolt, but it did happen occasionally that something in the doorway could cause an accident. Unfortunately, jump ships had limited meteoric shielding to protect them from such an event.
What?
The shudder increased. Hartwell grasped the arms of the command chair to keep the team.
Speeds, you have to be shielded, otherwise you're going to get dust. Those oh my god.
To keep from being hurled across the bridge. The navigation officer was not so lucky. He'd been lounging at his station, one leg thrown over the arm of his chair.
I've seen sieves with fewer holes than this ship.
He disregarded the first shudder with veteran aplomb. The second one caught his attention. With the Raiden's bridge at zero gravity, there was nothing to drop into for support. The navigator scrambled for his seat, but the forces were too great and too sudden. Hartwell saw a look of surprise and then fear flash across the navigator's face as the man's body hurled past the command chair. The navigator opened his mouth to scream, but whether it was in fear or a call for help, no one would ever know. Before he could draw breath into his lungs, the man's body had struck the environmental control console and literally come apart on impact. The upper torso was ripped from the hip girdle and continued to spin away toward the cargo access doors. The leg-
Congratulations, you now have a spray of blood in 0G. Good job, fuckers.
The legs lodged between the life support and internal security panels. The environmental specialist, 4th Officer Maria Savoyard, had just stepped through the access port from her quarters when the second jolt wrenched the Raiden. Not a seasoned veteran of jumps, she'd taken the first shudder as only a warning. It had not completely prepared her for the second event. But she was much better off than the wise and experienced navigator. By wrapping both arms around the emergency operation and override wheel next to the door, she kept herself from flying completely across the starship's wide bridge. It also saved her in another way. By tripping the emergency override system, she froze the door in the open position. Had she not done so, the airtight door would have slid shut, just as all other doors and ports were doing on the Raiden. With thousands of kilograms per square centimeter behind the doors, there was nothing, certainly nothing human, that could have prevented complete closure. She hung on, gasping for breath.
Oh no.
Hartwell had no time to mourn the death of the navigator or to worry about the fate of the environmental specialist. While his body fought the violent bucking of his ship, his mind tried to make sense of what was happening. The master console by his command chair was going wild. The engineering lights that monitored the major functions of the power system flashed a phalanx of emergency red. The navigational...
Never mind. Why do I even bother?
The navigational and polar coordinate readouts were going crazy.
Phalanx works.
Mm-hmm. Vector numbers flashed across the screen. 2,753, 9,829, 0080, 1,513. They came so fast and were so divergent that he couldn't comprehend them. The range reader flashed lots of zeros, lots of zeros. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read out each individual zero.
How many are there?
1, 2, 3, 7 on each side.
Yeah, okay.
And then went
As if
wild.
that means anything to anybody.
And then went wild as it climbed to 79s.79s. The vector plot showed the same number. I don't think I really need to read the whole fucking number out. Actually, what the hell? Let's do this once. 9999.9999999.
The Zero Escape series is getting a bit ridiculous with its sequel numbers.
Yeah. Hartwell felt his stomach churn and his mouth go dry. The Raiden was nowhere that was real. Then the violence stopped as suddenly as it had begun, except for the panting, labored breathing of Savoyard still wrapped around the emergency wheel. The bridge was silent. The forward view screen began to clear, showing myriad stars against the black void of space. The cameras swept across the emptiness, programmed to find and lock on to the nearest star system. The search had begun. Hartwell called up a report from engineering and got the bad news all at once. The helium containment vessel for the KF system showed major damage. Helium was leaking into the access passageways.
Dun dun dun.
Worse still was news from the fusion power core. The containment bottle for the nuclear reactor was also damaged. The jump ship Raiden was not in good shape.
Oh no!
The rest of the command crew slid into the weightlessness of the bridge, floating in, pushing off from the access shafts to drift across to their stations.
I'm so worried about the fate of these fuckers.
And so you should be. And yeah, it's pretty accurate so far. Hartwell...
Whatever will become of massively sexist samurai dickbag in fucking space.
Hartwell, meanwhile...
Wait, this is the ship that massively sexist samurai dickbag is on, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Somehow, I managed to lose track.
Gee, I wonder why.
And it's not because of robot war. Like,
Yeah,
you know what? That's enough.
do you want the bad news?
We have to keep going.
No. Actually, I think that will about do it for a grinding video. No, the bad news is that massively sexist Samurai Dicklord is the main character.